This one has the potential to be a little confusing, but I'm going to make it as clear as I can for how Tana uses days and dates in a slightly different way. So first of all, in terms of like the day node, each day you get a new day node, and that helps to eliminate the where do I put this hesitation when jotting down tasks or notes or ideas. You're going to put it on the day node. That's the most logical place. When you don't know where to put something, put it on the day node. Days and dates allow us to do date-driven work like task or project management, scheduling and servicing tasks, or capturing the start and end dates of events and so forth. That's a useful thing, obviously. And leveraging dates and the ranges of dates will in Tana allows us to get things anywhere from the units of years all the way down to the units of milliseconds. You can specify that in certain types of commands, and you can use it in that way in certain date fields, which can be quite useful. So in the mechanics here, when you'll have a calendar which just says daily nodes. It contains years and weeks and days. Now, if you're in a workspace other than the original workspace you started with, you may have to set up the calendar manually. And so there's command for like create a day super tag. I'm going to say that this has changed a little bit over Tana time. And as they're launching, I believe that only day and week are arriving. Maybe I don't think year is included as its own super tag. It may be, but I know that was something that it changed up a little bit. If there's any question or confusion, hop into one of our events in the free community, and we can talk about it or post in the free discussion space. But the basic idea remains the same. You'll have a day node. It's relatively rare you'll be engaging with the week node, except, you can, but it's more likely that you'll be doing things day by day. And you're likely going to have a day super tag on that day node or want a day super tag there. And like any other super tag, the day super tag can be used to create a template. And so you can have a template for things that you want to see every day. And anything you configure to appear in that day super template will appear every day. And so those day nodes then are great for jotting things down that might not otherwise have a home. If you ask yourself, where do I put this? The answer should usually be on today's day node. And when those things are tagged with their appropriate super tags and the fields are filled out, the nodes can just stay on those day nodes, but then they will populate and show up in the appropriate searches elsewhere in your Tana workspace. And we're going to come back to this sort of concept later, but it's one of the powerful things about Tana in particular is that something doesn't have to live in a particular location in order for it to show up where you need it. And because of that, kind of staying in the centralized, non-context switched area of the day node for most of the things that you're doing, most of the keeping track of things that you're doing, and then just tagging nodes so that they show up, tagging and filling out fields so they show up where they belong, and can be shown in a lot of different searches and a lot of different contexts as necessary. That's a pretty powerful way to work, and day nodes empower that. Now, dates in Tana provide some special functions. Day nodes and dates do not use the same mechanism. In a tool like Roam, Research, or a LogSeek, dates are pages, and referencing that page is how you work with dates. Tana, dates are a lot more powerful, so they aren't just the day node. You can within a date type field, you can use the calendar that pops up to select a date. You can access dates using the @ reference in there. You could use like November 3rd or Friday or tomorrow. There is it'll recognize natural language when you're in a date field. You just want to make sure that you choose the date from list, not the day node. And what I mean by that is if I'm in a field that's a date type field, I'll use Tana's built-in date field. That way I get an automatic date. I can choose from a calendar, but I can also @ reference date, a particular date. To say Monday, it'll give me some options here. I just want to make sure that I don't accidentally choose a day node. I want to make sure I choose a date so that I get the access to those functions. I think in a date field, generally speaking, that's okay. You're going to get the right things delivered to you. Just be aware of that distinction. The day node is where information can go. The date can be used in date math and all kinds of other stuff, depending on how you have it set up in Tana. You can set date and time ranges by adding an end time to a date field. So if I go back to my date thing that I was creating up here, let's get that. I'll use due date this time. If I say the 4th and then I say 10 a.m., I can add an end, and it's 11 a.m., I can do that at any level. It can be hour to hour, which is what this one is right now. If I do that, but I could have an end time that was 3 years from now if I wanted to that range. It gives you a lot of power. When you're using searches with dates, less than and greater than become powerful. Less than equals before, greater than equals after. You can use them with field types like numbers and things like that, but with dates, they allow you to say, like for instance, if I'm looking for tasks that are overdue, I can say less than scheduled on today. And I will see only those tasks which were available, were due yesterday or earlier. If I wanted to say today and overdue, I could say less than tomorrow, and I'll get today and overdue. And I mean, those specifics you'll have to play around with a little bit to understand that flow. But that's how the dates figure into and can be used within searches. And you can also use special language like for relative date today, or for relative date tomorrow, or yesterday. There's a whole, if you go to the Tana help page and look for look at how dates work, you can learn there's a lot of different language here you can use, like next week or last year, or that sort of thing. And you can see things that fit in certain ranges in searches. And we'll talk about parent, grandparent later, but if you're on a day node and you're right at the top level and you use parent, it'll use that date, today's date, or not today's necessarily, but whatever the date of the day node is, to incorporate into the search. So now that you kind of have a sense of those day nodes and dates, and I know this video is a little longer than some of my others here at the moment, it's just a tricky distinction to make there. You can go through these exercises, and then you can create, we created the schedule on field as a date field. You can then create some tasks, and then we'll create a search on the day super tag to surface those tasks, so you can get a sense of how can I schedule tasks so they'll show up when I need them. And then we can do the same thing with events here, scheduled events, so they'll show up on the days when they're scheduled. And now that just gets us, I'm not going to talk about it in Essential Tana Skills, but there are things like a Google Calendar integration and some things like that, so that when those things when that functionality exists, you have the searches you need, and Tana supplies a lot of that. Then you can automate, because if things are coming in correctly from a certain place and they're hooked up to show up correctly, suddenly you don't have to do that work yourself anymore. That's where Tana becomes a very, very special tool.